there's still the mentality of leave it at home. One of my favorite parts of the meeting is the check-in. So we're a food-centric organization. So we have people check in on a scale of rare to well done. Rare being juicy, full of life. Well done being, I've been left on the grill too long. Can't take any more. And neither of these are intended to be good or bad. It's just where you are in that moment of time. And I guarantee you, it's the only time that I actually think about how I am.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Burnt Chef Journal, a hospitality-specific podcast dedicated to challenging mental health stigma and conversations designed to inspire a new, healthier, happier, and more sustainable hospitality profession. The Burnt Chef Journal is proudly sponsored by Planday, the workforce management system that helps your business give a shift. From scheduling rotas ahead to tracking time and attendance, managing your team's careers to managing your budgets, Planday has everything you need to make your day work in one easy-to-use platform. Try it yourself with a 30-day free trial only at planday.com. Get your shift together with Planday. It is a fine Tuesday in February. I am joined here by an incredible human being who I had the privilege of meeting 2 years ago now.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Close to be two. So I'm joined by Erin Boyle, who is the CEO of CHOW, which I'm incredibly passionate about. The culinary hospitality outreach and wellness charity based in Colorado in the States. I should say at this juncture that I'm a trustee for the charity, and I'm very proud and privileged because the work that Erin and her team are doing is absolutely phenomenal, and we are kindred spirits from opposite sides of the pond. So Erin, thank you ever so much for joining me on the Burnt Chef Journal.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, it's been a long time coming. Your extended team, your rapidly growing team, have been doing some incredible work over many, many years now, and I'm lucky to see firsthand that work, and some of our volunteers and team have also benefited from training and various other things that you guys have been offering. So for those who haven't heard of CHOW, can you sort of explain just briefly what it is that you guys do?
Yeah, so ultimately the goal is to save lives by preventing overdose, deaths from addiction, and deaths by suicide. Those are the extremes. We're also here to support the well-being, mental health, and substance use relationships for people in the food, beverage, and hospitality industry. And we do that by helping each other. It's us helping us. So everyone that works for CHOW is in or from the food and beverage industry, and they have lived experience with mental health, substance use, and they want to see people's lives improve by sharing stories, skills, and resources. So it's possible that my story that was challenging could be your roadmap so that you don't have to go through quite the mountains that I had to.
It should be noted is different to your standard clinical support mechanisms whereby you sit down with a therapist with a psychological model. We're speaking from lived experience here, right?
Absolutely. So therapy is an amazing tool. It's got a pretty high barrier, right? It's expensive. It's hard to fit into our complex and complicated schedules. And it's someone telling you what to do. So if I enter that room, I'm expecting someone to literally give me a plan of attack. And I walk out going, okay, I'll try these things. What we do is different in that if someone comes to a meeting or meets with us one-on-one and tells us this is what's going on, we listen and say, what do you want to do with this? Do you just want me to listen? Do you want me to tell you what it was like when I was there? How can I best support you? Do you want to hear some resources for the particular thing that you're talking to me about? And we try to have no skin in the game. We're just there to be the support that they want, where I can't speak for therapists, but as someone who's been through therapy, it feels like there's an agenda and a growth trajectory. And we don't have that. We're just here to listen.
It's such, I mentioned before we were chatting about Drew Talbot. He was a speaker at one of your events, and we were talking about the importance of active listening, and he was talking about improv and how you have to learn to actively listen to be able to respond to your counterpart in improv. And it's something that I guess in our line of work, we've been doing this for quite a few years now. You become, by all means, I'm not perfect at it, especially, when I get home and it's all very hectic. Active listening is probably the furthest thing from your mind, rightly or wrongly. But we kind of become used to it, right? But it shouldn't be underestimated, the power that active listening and empathy and being that soundboard and that safety net, without necessarily having solutions, can have for someone who may be experiencing difficulties with their health or well-being, right?
We've all been in a conversation, whether it's with a partner, a friend, a parent, where you're saying, man, this is awful. There's this and this and this and this. And the person is like, okay, here's what we're going to do to fix it. And you're like, oh man, that's all I wanted, was to be heard and have someone go, that sucks. And yes, it sucks. Yes, and then I feel better. So that's the power of active listening, right? And we can offer solutions, but not everybody wants that. And I might be there a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, like, okay, now I'm ready for solutions. But today I just want somebody to acknowledge that it sucks.
Yeah, just want to get it off my chest. And I think, but it's not about me, it's about you. What do you think that makes it so interesting within hospitality that we need to have these sort of resources in place?
I'm not saying that we're completely unique. There are other industries that are similar, retail, art, but we all have the same sort of schedules. They're chaotic. We all have experienced getting off of work at 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, where what are you going to do? There's no gym open, so we go to bars. We've all experienced a clopen, right? We know what it's like to have to scramble for hours to get sent home early because there wasn't enough business. We've been tipped. We've been gig workers. There's so much in common that it sets the stage for us to get into a more interesting conversation very quickly, because I don't have to explain, my job is really hard because of this. Everyone in the room is like, yeah, I know. We're working probably for not ideal pay. We may not have benefits. And that's something that collectively we all understand. So again, it just brings that connection and community feel much, much faster than it would if I was in a room with people who work at a bank. I don't understand that life, right? Like, I don't understand getting to take this many breaks. You get to go to the bathroom when you want to. It's not based on how many customers you have. So while I might have a little benefit there and make connection eventually, it really helps build a sense of trust pretty immediately.
Yeah. It's an interesting sector for those observing from the outside. I don't think many people have actually ever really thought about the trials, tribulations, and the life, or sometimes most often the lack thereof, of people who are working within the hospitality ecosystem. Your servers, your chefs, even your supply partners who are trying to run at the same speed that a service runs at to be able to keep things ticking over. And you need to be able to create that safe environment quickly, right? Especially if you're speaking about things that for the first time you may never have spoken about, or you've been sat on for 2 or 3 years, and then you walk into a CHOW meeting and you want to know that you are seen and heard.
And the time, right? There's a huge barrier to getting any support for mental health and well-being because we just don't have time. We don't have time. We don't have money. We don't have access. So we try to stagger our meetings so that we have them at times that people can drop in. They can show up however they want. If they can't make it to the beginning of the meeting, but they make it to the middle, that's fine. We're still going to welcome them with open arms. We try to create a protected space and encourage people to show up however feels safe to them. I know when I was running restaurants, I don't think I would have been as boldly out and proud about my background with struggles in mental health. So you can show up with a fake name or turn your camera off or just use the chat or just listen, because listening is just as valuable as speaking through the meeting. You're still going to hear, so Drew was a speaker in one of our meetings and his story is incredible, right? So just being able to hear somebody that's gone through something similar and go, okay, I'm not alone. So if you didn't make it to that meeting, you can watch the video on our website.
Yeah, and I would encourage people to go to the CHOW website and to have a look at that, because ironically, we didn't spend much time talking about his mental health. We spent a lot of time talking about the benefits of improv and on social anxiety and other elements like that. And
that's mental health. You did it.
Yeah, I know, not necessarily about his personal story. So I would encourage you to head across to the CHOW website and have a look at that, because the website's lush anyway, but I think that there's additional content that you guys could benefit from there. So give us the scope of CHOW. People are interested. They're interested in learning more about the resources, the training, the meetings. Where do they have to be in order to be able to access this?
Yeah, so you can be anywhere in the world that you have a phone. It doesn't have to be a smartphone, just needs to be something you can dial in. We use Zoom as our platform. So anywhere you are, if the time fits, jump into a meeting. Note that everything we have posted is listed in Mountain Standard Time. You'll go to the website, click on the meeting date you want, hit go to the meeting, boom, you're there. If you do want to be anonymous, make sure you set up your Zoom to reflect that before you log on. We also have education. So I know the Burnt Chef has a lot of self-guided education, and it's amazing, robust. We have a facilitated mental health amuse course. So it's a bite into what is mental health, what is substance use disorder, how can I help myself or someone else that's struggling? We also do some conflict resolution and active listening skills. All that's in 4 hours, and it's free to the user. So you can sign up for that anytime. In addition to our meetings, our facilitators for the meetings are called expos, experienced peer offering support, and they can meet people one-on-one if a meeting doesn't feel like a comfortable space. And then we have a ton of other resources, workplace wellness toolkit, a scripts for challenging conversations. So basically, if you're not sure where to start, if you run an organization or if you work in an organization and you want to see things improve, this workplace wellness toolkit it collects things that have worked at other organizations. So it's not me saying this is going to work and fix everything. It's a large living document that we add to of things that have worked that people can try in their organizations. And then again, that scripts for challenging conversations. A lot of people want to say something and they don't know what to say. So we've set the stage. We've had it vetted by employment lawyers and trauma-informed therapists so that we know that what we're saying isn't going to get you fired or in trouble. Well, we hope not. But there's a lot of other resources like that. So if you scroll around the website, you're going to find all sorts of tools to add to your toolkit.
And the best thing is that there is no barrier to entry for these. As you say, you don't need technology. And because of the charitable nature of the organization, you guys offer a lot of this stuff for free.
Everything we offer is free to the user. So we get our funding through grants, partnerships, sponsors, individual donors, in order to make sure that anyone who wants to access these tools can have it at their disposal for free to them.
Amazing. So give us a roundup. 2018, it was founded originally. What are some of the key standout moments for yourself and CHOW over the last few years? I mean, let's go post-pandemic.
Yeah, so I joined in 2019 after I met John Hinman, the founder at Slow Food Nations. And I just thought it was an amazing idea to work with people in the industry on things that we hadn't talked about yet. We had our meetings in person at that time. And then March 2020, we went to Zoom and became accidentally international. Folks were finding us from all over the world and joining us for Monday night. We called it dinner because it was 6:00 here. And we realized that this was a thing. This had to be more. More people wanted it. How do we make it bigger? So we've grown our number of meetings. We currently have 8 per week, 1 for men, 1 for women. We're working on our Spanish language one. We had to take a break from that. And everything else is open to everyone. Other milestones. So we created that mental health amuse course that I mentioned because we realized if you don't have the language to talk about what's going on, it's really hard to talk about what's going on. Yeah. So we wanted people to understand, not just from a clinical standpoint, oh, this is what anxiety is in the definition. Like, I'm not very good with definitions. I need context. So in our training, our facilitators will say, this is what anxiety feels like to me in my body, so that people can really relate to, okay, so maybe that's what it is. And then we've just grown. We have a few in-person meetings that are also hybrid. So we added Colorado Springs, then Steamboat Springs, Fort Collins. These are all in Colorado. And then most recently, we added Washington, D.C. So we're always looking to support communities when they're ready for us. And you and I chatted a little bit before we started, that all takes money and support from the community. So it's not just CHOW coming in and saying, here, y'all, you need this. It's hearing from the community there is a need, and then having the community help us support that with funding.
Yeah, the work that organizations like CHOW do on such a large scale is, I mean, quite frankly, it's life-saving in many different ways. I mean, not least connecting tribes and a sense of connection and belonging and getting the support that you so dearly need in many cases. But these things don't run on thin air, because it's given for free doesn't necessarily mean that the magic money helps fund it. And it requires constant support. So if there's an area of even the States or the globe at the moment thinking, this sounds awesome, like how do we get these meetings? How do we help facilitate these? How do we register to be expos, which is an incredible opportunity? What can people do?
Visit our website, go to our contact us page, and we've got a whole blueprint, kit, box, everything shows up, and we help you go through everything that's needed to start. So we've done it enough times that I think we have a pretty good map so that people can make it their own. It's under the CHOW umbrella, but we really want it to be unique to the expos in the room, the locality. Like the needs of Washington, D.C. are completely different than the folks in rural Colorado. And we want to see that support happen. And I want to go back because you asked me some of the milestones and I was trying to think of them. And our biggest milestones are things that we can't really put into an impact document, right? So when you get that thing at the end of the year that's like, this is what we did, it's really hard to show the lives we didn't lose. But I know experientially, I've heard the stories. I've talked to the people that are like, I've thought about suicide. I came to a CHOW meeting. I attempted suicide. I came to a CHOW meeting. We had someone tell me they never came to a meeting. They watched the videos, the YouTube videos online, and they decided to stop drinking. They said it saved their lives because they saw a number of people do it. And now they do have a 24-hour gym, as it turns out. And so they go to the gym after work instead of going to the bar. Not everyone at the restaurant, but a large enough handful of them. And those are the things that I think are our biggest milestones, hearing from people. And again, it doesn't all have to be this extreme. We've also heard from people that got up the courage to ask for the raise or the promotion. We've heard of people that have left the job that they say is toxic. Whatever it is that people are struggling with, we've heard the wins. And I think those are the biggest milestones for me. Every time somebody can say, oh, I left this meeting feeling better. Not fixed. We didn't fix anything. But just better and able to handle what's out there again.
Yeah, and that's a really poignant point, isn't it? You get so bogged down, especially in the nonprofit and charitable space. I mean, you and I have spoken numerous occasions on how competitive and violent this space is, all clambering over each other for the biggest impact stats or, the latest event or whatever it might be. But I think it's very easy to get lost in percentages and big round numbers when you're doing impact stats. But the point is that every single one of these stats, every single one of these percentages is a human being that has...
It's not widgets. This is a person whose life was impacted and improved. And to your point, it's right. Because as the CEO, it does feel like, okay, well, the grantors want to see this. And so I'm making sure I'm collecting the data and getting that out. And that's not why we're doing it. That's why I still attend meetings. So the first time I went to a meeting, I was like, this is so cool for everyone. I'm going to bring it to everyone. I don't need it, right? Like I'm good. I was just curious and I just wanted to get more people using it. And then after about my fourth meeting, I was like, oh, I need this. And I noticed when I don't get to attend for a couple of weeks, I'm like, why am I my fuse is short. I'm feeling cranky. And then I realized I haven't been to a meeting for a while. And they're just really, again, helpful to keep sane in the chaos and have a place to dump the things that might come out in an argument with my partner or my parent, right? Like I'm like, oh, okay, I've let some air out of the balloon by going to the meeting.
I think it's important to recognize how powerful that is, especially in our line of work, right? Not necessarily yours and I's, but more front facing, still in the trenches, so to speak, whereby you're surrounded by thousands of people. You're turning tables like there's no tomorrow. You're with your work colleagues, but you can feel incredibly isolated where you're not able to speak. You don't feel like you've been heard. And that disconnect, and I feel it from time to time in certain situations where you look around and you go, I couldn't say anything vulnerable at this moment in time. And there's no one here that really gets this line of thinking. And to be able to have an environment that is comfortable, where you can do that, where you're not going to be judged, where other people are going, yeah, fuck, I get that completely. And like, tell me more, like, let it out, is so, so important. It's almost the lost art of communication in a digital world, right?
And to your point about being still in the industry, there's still the mentality of leave it at home. One of my favorite parts of the meeting is the check-in. So we're a food-centric organization. So we have people check in on a scale of rare to well done. Rare being juicy, full of life. Well done being, I've been left on the grill too long. Can't take any more. And neither of these are intended to be good or bad. It's just where you are in that moment of time. And I guarantee you, it's the only time that I actually think about how I am. Every other time when somebody says, how you doing? Great, fine. Like, we just, whatever word I can chuck out there and move on to the next thing. But we really think about it and like, how am I? And it's really helpful, especially on good days, because my default is to assume I'm terrible. That's how I was raised. It's just part of my genetic makeup. But when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm a medium rare today. And that helps. But it also helps to know that, if I checked in at a well done, maybe by the end of the meeting, I'm feeling a little medium well. And that's really helpful to like, okay, again, let a little air out of the balloon. I'm not going to pop.
If you're enjoying this week's episode, consider heading over to our website and supporting our ongoing work in destigmatizing mental illness and creating a healthier, happier, and more sustainable industry by purchasing some of our branded merchandise. We have a whole range of t-shirts, hoodies, chef's jackets, well-being journals, plus a whole host more available on worldwide dispatch. All funds raised from sales of these items go towards free-to-access e-learning content, as well as providing free support systems and help for those who may be experiencing difficulty with their mental health.
Yeah, and then that you also, I think, moving on to your culture, both setting the rules that you want to live by as well, and you want others to live by. During our trustee meetings, of which, due to time zone differences and various things, I try and make as many as possible, but you always start consistently with that check-in for all of us. And you're right, it does get you going, So one of the things that I'm very proud of being involved with is the fact that I trust you to run the organization from a trustee point of view in terms of how you speak with people, the processes and the intent that you set, and just the cultural balance that you're leading from the front with. And so could you speak a little bit about the type of culture that CHOW has internally and how that might be used to inspire restaurants or hotels or whatever it is within the hospitality industry?
So when I first started leading here at CHOW, it was the first time I've ever had autonomy in my job. I've never owned a restaurant. I've done everything else, but I've never owned. So at the end of the day, it was someone else that could reverse whatever I had done, and it happened a lot. I would say this person can have a week off. No, they can't. We need them. So being able to manage on my own, I did a big swing. Whatever I did in the restaurant industry, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And that's how our culture was created. We have a culture of curiosity. So we assume the best intent of people. So if someone isn't doing what they should or showing up the way I think they should, rather than being like, man, Kris is a real dick today and he's screwing me over, I'm going to say, hey, Kris, what's going on? And I might find out that you didn't sleep last night. You had a fight with somebody, and then I can go, gosh, I've been there too. And that really stinks. Is there anything I can help you with to get you to the deadline? And I think that's where that temperature check is helpful in workplace, just to hear how people are doing. So again, we can assume good intent from our coworkers, give each other a little grace. We really are trying to say the things that are pain points. So if I don't agree with someone on the team or they don't agree with me, they're encouraged to speak up and say, I don't think that's a good idea, and here's why. This is not meant to be just argumentative. The intent is to have some foundation and backing. When you're challenge directly and say, I think this would be a better thing to do. So if you're just saying, I don't like the color red, well, that's not super helpful unless you're telling me why and what else we can do. We also have a very generous PTO. The work that we're doing is hard, and that's the same in the industry. Every other industry that I can think of has paid time off. So the fact that we generally don't, and if we do, it's like a week. You can't run a sustainable industry business on that. That's why we have so many young folks and people leaving in their 30s and 40s. There is so much in my brain that would be useful to a restaurant after 25 years of working in service, but I can't lift 50 pounds of potatoes. I would love to see the industry culture change from like, you've got to be young and fit to do this work, to like mentorship. And that's also something that I'm working with our team is, what do you want to do? Is CHOW a stepping stone to something? Is CHOW the only place that you want to work? How can I help you get there? They may leave after all this training, but they're going to make the world better in another different way. So I'm really trying to have the opposite of scarcity mindset, right? Like abundance mindset, which is also different from restaurants. In this culture, it's really hard. So as you know, there's a new administration in the United States, and my scarcity mindset has been slipping back in. But I'd like to believe in abundance.
That's a lovely segue. Well done for bringing that into play, because I think it is a really important, prominent point that far too many people, I think, are afraid of talking about because it's scary, it's uncertain. Also, dare I say it, there's certain levels of censorship coming into play over in the States now, which is, I'm just going to breach it, it's fucking the country up with the new administration. I'm not a USA resident, and I'm very lucky that we don't have to deal with that currently in the UK in its current incarnation. But when you talk about scarcity mindset, how are the recent changes with the Trump administration and the rules, and just whether they're rules or just things he blurts out on social media, how is that affecting the work that you guys do?
Yeah, whatever party you're on, you're being affected right now by the policy changes. And right now, we just don't know. It's just a lot of chaos. So there's a lot of ideas being thrown out. There's courts are overruling. We just don't know, which is one of my least comfortable places. I am an anxious person. I've been diagnosed with anxiety. So not knowing is one of the hardest. And I realize that we never know. But life can be pretty predictable. And this last couple of weeks has been just chaos with trying to figure out, did we lose our funding? Did we not lose our funding? Are they going to freeze it now? If they don't freeze it now, is it going to freeze in July? There's just so many variables that we didn't have to worry about 3 weeks ago.
And for those who are unaware, perhaps you're not listening from the States, or I don't know, who somehow haven't seen what's going on in the news. This is in respect to Donald Trump effectively saying that marginalized groups, diversity, equity, inclusion, any equality that should exist within the States has effectively just been smashed and told that it doesn't exist, which is...
Yeah, and freezing funding on grants that serve those communities. And, we don't know what's happening with people being deported, with ICE raids. It doesn't matter what your political belief is. There's just a lot of chaos and uncertainty everywhere, which for me, the little hamster in the wheel of my brain is like, ooh, we gotta watch our own, we gotta protect ourselves. And again, I get back into that scarcity mindset of never enough time, money, hours, people, which is just not true. There's plenty of all that.
There is. And it's a firm belief of mine personally, that we are only limited by our perspective. And you mentioned curiosity from an internal culture point of view, but I think that if we look back to the times where we haven't made a move, or we've changed our mindset or stance or perspective on something, it's because of almost like the lack of curiosity to be able to, or the lack of, I don't know, perspective, I guess. Like we have to be curious and pick up a few rocks and turn them over to understand that there are opportunities out there. And it does seem very, like, acknowledging it seems incredibly bleak, but then next week it could all change again with the way that you've got the man in power who.
Yeah, I mean, back to how I lead now. Failure is that's not bad. If we fail, we learn something. And we don't fail as individuals, we fail as a team. So if any one of us does something and it doesn't work, then we all go, okay, that didn't work. Let's figure out why, which again is different than my experience in restaurants, which was, if a dish doesn't sell, you're a bad chef. If you didn't get a good tip, you're a bad server, right? Like, you fail alone and it's seen as a negative. And so just kind of tying that all back together is, you got to flip over the stone and find a bunch of bugs, and then maybe you find a key under another one. Yeah.
And I think that, despite the challenges or hurdles that you'll overcome, like the growth and the development of CHOW over the last 2 years that I've seen has been nothing short of phenomenal, which shows that there is a need, and that there's a growing need for the services and the support mechanisms and the work that you guys do. So moving away from, perhaps, I know it's a big part of the organization in terms of grant funding, etc., but how can people support the work? How can they help commercially drive the work that you do?
I mean, there's lots of ways. Come to a meeting, right? That's going to energize our team. The more folks they see, the more filled up our team will get. And I can't put a dollar sign on that, but I can tell you it's invaluable. Talk about mental health in the workplace. Talk about the support for mental health, Burnt Chef, CHOW, other organizations that are similar. We always take money. We love money. So individual donations. But if you work at a restaurant who supports this kind of work, you can get creative, do a cocktail for a cause or a mocktail for a cause. And so we encourage low lift items. We don't ever want to have a gala. I don't want to have a bunch of chefs doing a dinner, because I'm like taking away from their mental health by having them have this dinner or gala for us. We want low lift, pizza for a cause. $1 of each pizza goes to us for a month. But I cannot stress the importance of just being involved, being part of the conversation. The things are really challenging in the world wherever you are. And knowing that there's a vessel, a place that you can go that's protected, that you can talk about the things that are challenging or the things that you're excited about that you don't have anyone else to tell at the moment, that's going to improve your life, workplace, the industry. The ripple effect is huge. So yeah, join us. Join us in changing the industry.
I've been making a couple of notes here whilst we've been talking. I know that we've got links and references, but I think, in light of what's happening currently, and also the sheer scale of what you guys are offering, we'll upload, and it'll probably be likely, because my team are fucking class, we'll upload like a little link to your next meetings.
Great.
Onto not just the podcast, but onto the Burnt Chef website under support and helpful resources, so that people can start to not overwhelm you, but please, drop in out of curiosity and have a look and get a feel for what's going on. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's hospitality, right? And there's one thing that we get, and it's hospitality. No matter what part of the world you're in, we are able to travel the globe without having necessarily the local understanding of languages, etc. Obviously, in this instance, it would help, especially for the English-speaking meetings. But do drop in if your curiosity is piqued. Then
Yeah. I mean, again, I got into this to help others. I was convinced I didn't need anything like this. I had a therapist. I had what I needed. And that curiosity to help others got me into the meeting and went, oh, this is something cool. And we've got, depending on the month, we've got an over 80% return rate, which means it's working, right? The people who attend are getting something out of it. We're not making this up. If we had like a 2% return rate, I wouldn't keep doing this. I'm not going to bash my head against a wall for something that isn't working, but we know that it is. And this kind of work, the peer-to-peer, has scientific based evidence showing that it's just as impactful and sometimes more, depending on the person, as therapy. Again, I'm not saying don't do therapy. Please do therapy. If you can afford it, everyone needs it. Make the world better. But we're also open to all modalities. We're not a sober group. We're not a only for folks with anxiety group. We like to focus again on well-being and harm reduction. So if somebody is like, you know what, I really, really need to stop drinking, but I'm going to still smoke weed. Cool. Great. Congratulations. How can we help? You want to keep drinking, but you want to quit smoking. You decided it's too dangerous to ride without a helmet. You're going to wear a helmet now when you ride your motorcycle. Great. All of these things are things we want to celebrate with you, just to reduce harm to you, to the world, to our community.
Non-judgmental spaces, right?
Correct.
Because often enough, if you go to, like, over here, we're lucky to have the NHS, but I think the NHS and medical insurance for you guys, there's a waiting times just as long as each other now for therapy. But you'd always get that look down the nose from your doctor or from your healthcare professional who'll go, well, yeah, it's no wonder you feel bad if you're drinking 2 pints a night. You should really stop that. And you go, hold on, I didn't come here for a fucking guilt trip. I came here for some support.
Yeah, maybe you would sleep better if you didn't eat all those chips right before bedtime. Okay. But I'm here for a cold, so could you help me with that?
Yeah. I actually broke my arm. Well, yeah. But whilst we're here, let's do you on.
I can get it. If you ever want, we can do a 3-4 hour podcast on the industrial medical machine that is in the United States, and I can share my disappointment.
Okay. Well, I mean, hopefully I get to experience a little bit more, because I've never actually been to the States before. So, you know, all of what I know or perceive to know is all through conversations over the work that, you know, our organizations have done together and so forth over the last 5-6 years. I've never actually been boots on ground, like experienced American culture firsthand.
Well, I mean, first of all, you're going to Atlanta. Get ready to be warm.
Warm?
Yeah, you're going to be hot.
No way. I looked at the weather the other day and it was like -1 in end of Feb. Are we serious?
It all depends on, I mean, weather is not predictable anywhere anymore, right?
If it's going to be hot, I mean, oh wait, what are we looking at here? Celsius?
I think by the time you go, it's going to be warm.
I mean, according to this, there is a flood watch at the moment. So
yeah, no, we're having like a cold thing happening here too. So, I mean, I was in Austin last week and it was 80 degrees.
Sure. I mean,
so first of all, be prepared for warmth and also just the vastness that is the United States. So I think you had said like, oh, I'm going to Atlanta. Can you meet me there? And I'm like, that's like a 4.5 hour flight, Kris. I can't. And we have someone on our team from Naples, Italy, and she's always like absolutely shocked at how, like, she's going to California. Oh, I'm going to be in California. Do you want to meet up with me? Like, well, California is massive. To drive the whole thing, I think would take like 8 hours. So where?
Yeah, I mean, Colorado to Atlanta is like opposite sides of the country, isn't it? Almost.
I mean, darn close. Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully, I get to meet Jasmine.
Yeah, you will.
I'm there for a week, so I heard that Jasmine's a critical member of the CHOW team as well. I think it'll be interesting. Like when I went across to Toronto, the project was known, and the conversations were a lot more fluid than they are over here. I think there's the British culture, you know, stiff upper lip and all that sort of jazz sometimes works against us when we're trying to challenge stigma. Whereas I found Canada was a lot more, they got the elephants, The giant elephants, for the first time, I didn't actually have to explain what they were. They were like, yeah, man, that's the elephant in the room. That's fucking class. So we've got an elephant going to Atlanta as well. So we'll see how that goes. Bit of a curveball, because I know that you are finishing up and you need to jump off. But in terms of how you manage your own health and well-being and the things that you've learned about yourself since doing this since 2019, what would you say are some of the key epiphanies, the key bits that you've gone, yeah, that's what I'm going to do for moving forward?
Yeah. One of the key bits is that my energy is not endless like it used to be in my 20s, or at least how I used to pretend it was in my 30s. And this is a marathon, not a sprint. So taking meaningful time off, actually not looking at my emails. My team knows that there are almost no emergencies. If something is truly an emergency, you can contact me, but if I'm off, I'm off. And that goes for everyone on the team. And that's been one of the really challenging parts of leaving the restaurant industry and hospitality to doing this, because we're all so conditioned to answer the phone, check the text, look at the emails. So that having really firm boundaries around, this is my work time and I need this other time, or I'm not going to. And I hate to put it into those capitalistic terms, like I'll be a better worker if I take time off. But I am. But I'm also a better human, sister, daughter, aunt, dog mom when I take the time that I need. I do a lot of physical activity because that's where I get to do my thinking. Because I go from meeting to meeting and do lots of emails in my work life, a good 2-hour hike is like when my brain actually has time to be like doing whatever it wants, and it's a delight. And I'm a potter, and I do that on Tuesday nights, and I'm very protective of that time. So I don't take meetings. We have lots of cool stuff that pops up on a Tuesday night, and I think it's incredibly valuable to put yourself above the other things, whether that's, again, time with the family or time at work. Like, no, this one thing for these 3 hours is just for me. I've seen a shift over the 5 years I've been doing this, and it's been really hard, but it's getting a lot easier to say yes to having a sick day, to say yes to having a mental health day. But it's taken 5 years to get here.
And that's from people, and that's from an individual. And I share that thought process. These are from individuals who spend all day challenging stigma and providing support to others. And if it takes us 4 or 5 years to be able to push through this, I think that is a perfect way to end this podcast by summarizing how fucking difficult our job is and to get people talking.
At least for you and I, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but we're not going to solve this in our lifetime.
No.
Which means taking a day off isn't going to hurt. So I try to remember that, like, it's not all on my shoulders. It's not all on your shoulders. But yeah, I agree. I got nightmares from watching a trailer for The Bear. I've still never seen it. And the folks that are still working in the industry, it's so beautiful. It's so creative. It's so resilient, adaptable. I wouldn't have wanted to do anything else with my life. I loved it. And it was really, really hard.
What a brilliant way of finishing this podcast. Erin, thank you ever so much. I'm conscious and respectful of your time as well. So I know you've got a dash, but if anyone wants to find you, again, just in case they missed any particular part of this, where do they learn more about CHOW?
CHOW, CHOWCO.org. And you'll see a listing for our meetings, our education, our resources, our blog.
Perfect. Thank you. And do go check it out. So much in there that you guys can benefit from operational level or from an individual level, and most importantly from an individual level. So, and we'll add some resources to our website as well for easy access. Erin, thank you ever so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Kris.